You've heard of the mercy rule, right? Or I guess in other parts of the country, in different sports, it can also be called the skunk rule or the 10-run rule. The basic premise is that you're losing the game so badly that the ref is like, we're going to have to put a stop to it. You can't manage to put any points on the board, and it's not even worth it to stick around. And I feel like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is getting fucking skunked, and there's nothing they can do to move the ball. I made a video last week after the video out of the Sallyport turned out to be inverted. I thought that was the worst it was ever going to get. And then yesterday, they did put Proctor on the stand, which we were all jonesing for. But they also put this guy, Nicholas Barros, on the stand, which may have been another cataclysmic mistake. Now, real quick, I always admit that I'm a few steps behind all the other people doing coverage on here because I'm a Johnny-come-lately. But I did a video back at number 6 where I did a video on Proctor, and I talked a little bit about how it was just really sketchy, some of the things he did and did not do when he was investigating this. And that's just barely breaking the seal. There is so much. I could do 5 videos on this guy. One thing I want to correct from that video is that I said that the Sallyport didn't have a video camera or working video camera. And it did. The correction is it did. It just seems to be missing several key minutes of video. And then the bullshit that they gave us was fucking inverted. So what good does it do it if it's tampered with? I really don't think that Assistant District Attorney Lawley had this in mind when he thought he was going to take this to trial. I really honestly believe that he thought he had a good case. They made the mistake of trusting Proctor, believed him. They believed he had all the evidence. They believed he had a whole slew of witnesses lined up. Nobody was monitoring the level of investigation that he was doing. The problem was that he wasn't asking for things, right? If there is this plausible denial at the end, if Brian Albert can get up on the stand and say, well, no, I didn't turn over my phone records. I was never asked to. And Proctor can go, well, I never asked him to because I didn't feel we needed to. So there's always this kind of mixed message in between where they can just all play a little bit stupid. However, I'll bet my next paycheck, they had no fucking clue that Karen Read would fight back this way. They didn't think this in a million years. But she went out and she got herself some kick-ass attorneys. And she's fighting. She's fighting against this. And thank God she is. But the other thing they didn't count on was the public. If you think back to some other really big trials, if you think back to OJ and you think back to Scott Peterson, we weren't watching those on our phones live streamed. We couldn't be internet sleuths. We just had to trust whatever was happening in the courtroom, whatever the nightly news reported to us, and we didn't have a say. I think that the Commonwealth was really fucking shocked that so many people wouldn't support them. I think they thought they were putting away a cop killer and we would all get behind him and we would just believe whatever they had to say. And boy, were they wrong. Now, yesterday on the stand, I'm just going to touch very briefly on this. One of their major flaws was they put Nicholas Barros up, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was just trying to mitigate what would have happened if he'd had to been a defense witness. But he is from the Dighton Police Department. Karen's parents live in Dighton. So I believe what happened was Karen was at their house. They needed to impound her vehicle. They were probably arrest was pending. So they probably asked Dighton police to go there first, make sure they were home. And I don't know if he's required to be present before a state trooper can show up, but Proctor shows up to interview him. And this Barros guy stays outside. He's outside with the vehicle. So he's outside monitoring the vehicle, making sure no one's tampering with it, nothing's happening. And he's the one that testifies that the taillight was cracked, not damaged, not destroyed, that there's one piece missing from it, that's it, and that otherwise it was intact. That's a big fucking miss. He's standing by the vehicle moments before it's towed to the Sallyport. And don't forget, Proctor, the time he put in his report as the time it was towed was an hour different than the time it was really towed. So there was an hour missing where the vehicle was either on its way or it sat in the Sallyport for an hour that seems to be missing from Proctor's timeline. Now then, keep in mind, Proctor went back to 34 Fairview on the 3rd, the 8th, the 10th, the 11th, and the 18th. Swore that on the stand, and he wasn't able to recall if anybody was with him or who was with him at any of those times. Incredibly, every time he went back, he managed to find more evidence. So he found a black drinking straw that he thinks that John O'Keefe was drinking out of. I'm curious if it was ever DNA tested. Probably not. He found the hat. And then they found upwards around 40 pieces of plastic from the taillight. So you got this guy, this officer, well-respected officer who has nothing to do with the case, and he's not connected to anyone in the family, saying, that taillight was just cracked. They tow it to the Sally Port, and several times over the next 2 weeks, Proctor's revisiting the scene and finding more evidence, and it's all these little minuscule pieces of taillight from that car from that night. And then Proctor takes the stand. And there is so many things that are wrong with this investigation. I will do another video where I talk about how he was questioning people that had nothing to do with it. He was just doing this wild goose chase the entire time. From the word jump, he was trying to build a case against Karen and never wanted to consider anything else along the way. And I don't know where he developed such a hatred for her, but to witness the judge, when he was on the stand yesterday, force him to actually say the words that he called her. He wanted to spell it. He wanted to say, well, I called her a C-U-N-T. And the judge is like, if it's your words, you need to say it. If every single person watching this didn't realize what an absolute vile, abhorrent pig this man is. He's going through her photos, he's looking for nudes, but he's violating her privacy in the worst ways possible. He's sharing her medical problems. I mean, she has Crohn's, we all know that now, but that's not an easy disease to deal with. She also has MS, which is another not easy deal with, especially when you're a 42-year-old woman. Those are very difficult illnesses to live a normal life with. It's very difficult. And so for him to just make fun of her, the level of shame and degradation and disrespect that he is bringing to the state police department, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's disgusting.